This week on Alan's Antics. Well, it looks like Vladimir Putin is hitting us with the truth again, because truthkings.com, Vladimir Putin is making waves again, and this time it's because he is once again slamming the pharmaceutical alliances and big food corporations. He believes that both of these entities are derisive, mind-controlling and poisonous beings with the ambition of world population control. Human evolution is at grave risk, and that Western powers are intentionally decelerating the process for personal gain. Putin described Western culture as intensively vaccinated, borderline autistic fat man slumped in front of a screen, battling a high fructose corn syrup come down. From samgerins.com, Europe demoralized, invaded and violated. While the liberal media is working on damage limitation as the fairy dust on its childlike delusions is blown away by the harsh winds of reality in places like Cologne, it's time for European nations to ask themselves whether they believe in their own right to exist. Just because post-World War II European liberals have been culturally neutered doesn't mean that the armies of young men pouring in from Arab countries and sub-Saharan Africa have been too. My nation's forebears laid down their lives in their millions to defend their land. I do not believe I'm alone in regarding as pernicious, criminal, treacherous and evil that collusion between politics, education, media and business, which treats any instinct for survival amongst indigenous European peoples as a disposable and distasteful commodity. Voices of reason are coming to the fore. From Hungary and Slovakia, for example. We should listen to them. The end of Europe? Berlin, Brussels, shock tactics on migrants. Is this how Europe ends? The Germans, founders and funders of the post-war Union, shut their borders to refugees in a bid for political survival by the Chancellor, who let in 1 million migrants, and then, why not? They decide to revive the Deutschmark while they're at it. That's not the fantasy of die-hard Eurosceptics, but a real fear articulated at the highest levels in Berlin and Brussels. EU officials say it is too early to panic. Arrivals have fallen this month. UN data shows them running in January at half the 3,500 daily rate of December. Progress includes a move to let some of the 2.1 million Syrian refugees in Turkey take jobs. The EU will fund more schools for refugee children. Yet EU Migration Commissioner Dimitris Avramopoulos told the European Parliament the situation is getting worse. The refugee crisis is jeopardizing the very core of the European Union, he said, offering no grounds to be optimistic other than that optimism is our last line of defense. And my wife and myself have been home educating our youngest child for around 6 years now, and we've seen a vast improvement. He has special needs, and my wife is a qualified special needs teacher. So it only seemed right that if he had those needs and she had the qualifications, we educate them, seeing as the local school that he was going to stated quite clearly that they didn't have the funding or the resources to provide for his special educational needs. So we are glad that we home educated. We would promote home education to anybody who's in a position to do so. If both parents are working full-time, which, let's face it, is unavoidable these days if people are going to make ends meet, then it's not possible for you to home educate. But there are other alternatives, like private schools and private tuition. But that's all money, and if you haven't got the money, then you are left with one choice. Take your child out of school and home educate. And once again, give the government more information than maybe you really want them to know about you. Now, if you've been listening to my blogs over the last few weeks, you'll know that I take a lot of stick on Twitter and Facebook and other social media. And you know what? That's fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, and anybody can find any facts they want to support any theory they want, anytime they want, from wherever they want. Well, this week it was the myths and facts of global warming. Fact: the Earth is variable. The Arctic region had warmed from 1966 to 2005 due to cyclic events in the Pacific Ocean and soot from Asia darkening the ice. But there has been no warming since 2005. Current temperatures are the same as in 1943. The small Palmer Peninsula of Antarctica is getting warmer, while the main Antarctic continent is actually cooling. Ice cap thickness in both Greenland and Antarctica are increasing. So, there you go, some facts and figures that disprove climate change, and they're the ones that I choose to believe. You may decide to choose to believe something else, and that's fine, that's your right. Please feel free, but don't abuse me just because I think differently to you. Now, we can all make spelling mistakes, but for one young man, it all got a little bit out of hand. A Muslim schoolboy, 10 years old, is quizzed by police after writing, "I live in a terrorist house," when he meant terraced. Oh, by the way, if you're not sure what a terraced house is, it's like a townhouse that's joined onto another on each side, and there's a whole row of houses all joined together with connecting walls. And we in Britain, for many, many years, have called them terraced houses. This little boy made a mistake and called it a terrorist house, and had the police and social services on his door. And maybe the social worker was really, really looking for an excuse to take that little boy into care. Here's a story about Christian militia from the dailymail.co.uk. And no, it's not what you're thinking. This isn't from America. Burning the black flag of ISIS. Christian militia, calling themselves Red God's Defenders, take up arms to stop the spread of jihadism in the Philippines. Just because they say they're Christian doesn't mean that they are. And let's remember that two wrongs don't make a right. It seems that the Daily Mail has picked up on a story and given itself the most inflammatory headline it could find to make people think more about those terrible, terrible asylum seekers. Quote, "It reminds you of 1930s Germany. Asylum seekers are forced, apparently, to live behind red doors in an apartheid move compared to the yellow stars the Nazis gave to the Jews." Apparently, asylum seekers have been, quotes, forced to live in houses with red doors, thanks to a policy which has been compared to 1930s Germany. Being somebody who's lived in council houses and private rented property all my life, sometimes, you don't get a choice about the colour of your front door. The council used to come and just paint the doors, and that was that. You had no choice. And this seems to me to be the policy that's been going on here. They've bought bulk red paint and have decided that they're going to paint all their doors of their properties red. And it's as simple as that. However, this has been turned into a refugee, asylum seeker, fear porn type story by the Daily Mail with its headline, "It reminds you of 1930s Germany. Asylum seekers are forced to live behind red doors in apartheid move compared to the yellow stars the Nazis gave to the Jews." I don't personally think that's the case at all. I think they just bought a whole load of red paint and decided that they were going to paint the doors of their properties in that colour. After all, they do own them. They can paint them any colour they like. Well, that was just a little snapshot of the week on Alan's Antics on RadioFreeUK.org. To hear the full recordings and a whole lot more, go to RadioFreeUK.org. And there'll be more next week. Take care and have a safe one.